Well, a wonderful, fabulous, cheerful and happy good morning to you, grade 3s at home. This is Liz, your maths teacher, back with you to give you your next maths lesson. And it's a huge joy for me to do that. It makes me smile every day. I hope you guys are smiling. Yes, you are? Cool. We've got quite a lot to smile about, haven't we? So let's get on with some maths smiling. And of course, WorksheetCloud makes us smile because it brings us these wonderful maths lessons every week. And there is the email address if you need to get hold of me. On with the lesson. But as you know, before we do anything, we start off on a cheerful note. So we start off with a riddle or two or three today, and all linked with maths, just to make us have a good old laugh like that dog on the screen. So, what is our first riddle? Well, it goes like this. What did the calculator say to the student? You know what a calculator is, don't you guys? The calculator replied and said, "You can always count on me." That's quite funny. How do you make one vanish, disappear? Well, you add a G to the beginning of the word one and it's gone. That's quite clever, don't you think? Now, listen to this one. What does 167 plus 35 plus 99 plus 136 plus 84 plus 542 plus 878 add up to? How quick do you think you can work that out? I can't. You know why? Because it gives me a headache. It adds up to a headache. Well, after that little smile, we are going to now be looking at measurement. And remember, we've done length, or the introduction to length. Now we're going to do an introduction to capacity. And once again, I'm going to remind you that whenever I start a concept, I always make sure that I try to leave nothing out if possible. So I go back to the very beginning, the very basics, because if we get the basics, then every step after that is easier. But if I leave the basics out, then it gets tricky because you lose some of the information. Right. So capacity is all about what amount of water, or any other substance for that matter, can be held in a container, any container. So let's read the actual definition, guys. Capacity is the amount of space inside a container that can be filled with either a solid, like sand or flour, a liquid, or even a gas. So we put gas into those balloons, or we breathe into those balloons to blow them up. So that means how much solid, liquid, or gas can be put into certain containers. Right, now let's look at the concept of how full. And I suppose we could think of how empty is the opposite of that. So there is our full jug, right? Full of water, or full of some kind of juice, blue juice. And there we have taken something out of that jug, and we've taken about a quarter of the liquid out of that jug. So I'm just trying to show you too how we connect what we've learned in fractions with everyday life as well. Maths is all interconnected. And that means that jug is 3/4 full. Now we've taken another quarter out. We've taken half out. So this jug is half full. We have drunk half of it, and there's half of it left. And this one, now we've taken another quarter out. So we've taken 3/4 out altogether, which means that we have 1/4 in that jug. So it's 1/4 full jug. These jugs, all containers, are basically called non-standard units to measure capacity. Okay, so we can use anything that you can find around the house or in the shed to measure how much a container can hold. It's called non-standard, right? So let's have a look at these jugs and buckets, because I want you to look at what happens when we use non-standard measuring containers to measure how full a container is compared with standard units of measurement like liters, milliliters, kiloliters. And we'll explain that in a little bit more detail later. So there we have non-standard units to measure capacity, or how much we can fill a container. And there's, look at the small jug. Right, so we have a small jug right there. We have a large jug right there. We have 4 buckets. There's a small one, slightly bigger, and the biggest jug. So there could be a problem if somebody says, I want you to bring a bucket of ice to the birthday party. Because what size bucket do you think they're going to want you to bring? So there comes the question. Now we're going to look at, after looking at jugs and buckets, we're now going to look at some more non-standard measuring units like cups and spoons. Now have a good look at that, grade 3. And you can see that here we have a large coffee cup, and we have a small teacup, and we have 2 different size cups there, and we have 2 different size spoons. What's the question? Well, if I have to bake something and they ask me to use a cup of flour, well, which cup do I use? So non-standard units to measure capacity can be a problem. Can you see that? Okay, so let's look a little more closely at non-standard units, like those jugs and those buckets. And the way we're going to do this is I'm going to share a recipe with you. Right, let's have a look at the recipe now. We're going to make mixed fruit punch delicious, especially on a hot summer's day around the pool. So, for instance, the first thing I'm told I have to find is 1 cup of black currant juice. Delicious, right? Fine, that's no problem, except to go look in the pantry or the cupboards or the drawer, and I find 2 cups. Which one do I use? Don't know. Oh, well, I think I'll probably try and use the big one. You might use the small one. So then it says 1 bottle of soda water. But I go to the shop, and there I've got a small bottle of soda water and a big bottle. I don't know which one to choose. Oh, dear. Then a half a glass of lemon juice. Fine, so I go and get the lemon juice glass off the shelf, but there are 2 glasses. Which one shall I choose? Do not know. But I'm told the last ingredient is 300 milliliters of orange juice. And there is my 300 milliliters of orange juice. And it's your normal kind of small bottle, right? 300 milliliters. Not your big liter like your 2-liter Coke. It's a smallish bottle of orange juice. And that is the only one, grade 3s, that can tell me exactly what I need to put into this recipe. If you are baking chocolate crunchies or chocolate chip cookies and you are asked to put a teaspoon of baking powder in and you don't know what size that teaspoon looks like, you can ruin those gorgeous chocolate chip cookies. So it's very important that we have to use standard units of measurement, which means that if I am in Cape Town or Durban or Egypt or London or the United States of America, I will generally use the same measurement for everything. So, to give you an example, look at that spoon there. That is 1 teaspoon. Now, teaspoon is written with 1 tiny little t and tiny s and tiny p. And it is 5 milliliters. Now, you're going to figure out that later. We're going to look at what that means. But here we have a jug, and this jug here is a 1 liter jug or 1000 milliliter jug. And you can see it jumps in hundreds there, up to 1000 milliliters, which is the same as 1 liter. So if someone says you need a jug, 1000 milliliters or 1 liter of water for your recipe, you know exactly what to do. Or if it says you need to put 1 teaspoon of baking powder into your chocolate chip cookie recipe, you know you're going to put that amount in. There's no argument, no confusion. Right, so again we focused on standard units of measurement, and we're going to look first at liters. Right, there's a liter jug, and each little section here is jumping in 200s, in the big lines, and then between that is obviously 100. So up to 1 liter, which is 1,000 milliliters. So we're going to look at liters, milliliters, and kiloliters. Right, so what does 1 milliliter look like? Now, if you remember when we did our length lesson, I said to you, you needed to remember certain things and copy and paste them in those clever little minds of yours. Like, for instance, 1 centimeter is the width of your pinky finger, and 1 millimeter is about the size of the top of a sharpish pencil, and 1 meter is 1 big step or 1 big stride. So now I'm going to do the same thing with capacity, because in your head you need to have a picture of what these things look like, because have I told you before, you learn using your eyes, your ears, your other senses, and your brains combined together. So I'm giving you pictures to remember. So if you think of a milliliter, you're thinking of little. And one of my girls, when I was teaching them once, said, I think I would like to call a milliliter a mini-liter. Now, I thought that was quite clever. So I thought, I'm going to share that with you. She said a mini-liter, but it's actually not a milliliter, although mini means small, it's milliliter. And you can go in later into all the descriptions of what these words mean, but I'm not going to do that right now. So a few drops of water is the same as 1 milliliter. And there's a little syringe, and you can go and buy one from the chemist, and you can play with that just to get an idea. What is 5 milliliters? What is 1, 2, 3, and 4 milliliters? Well, that little section there at the bottom, if you draw up water to that first little line there, that is 1 milliliter. And you might have seen doctors doing that when they're going to give you an injection, or if you've taken your animal to the vet, he will draw up a certain amount of medicine to administer to you or to your animal. And there is an example of that medicine there in that little section there, and you can see where the 1 is. Okay, right. So that is 1 milliliter. And you know what? It's like a couple of drops. So I get my kids when I teach them this in class, and we play with water and use syringes and all sorts of jugs and cups and spoons. And you know what? They play along with this and they figure it out. And they learn by doing. So we need to know that 1 milliliter is written in short ML with littles, no capitals. And there is our standard teaspoon, which is 5 milliliters. So this whole syringe here, if it was filled with water, would fit into our little teaspoon, which is 5 mils. Just excuse me. Right, so on we go to the next one. And you're learning through looking at these pictures, are you not? So there is a medicine measure. So often a doctor will give you a little bottle of cough mixture or something that you need when you're feeling sick, and he'll say you need 1 medicine measure. So he means 1 teaspoon, which is 5 milliliters. So can you copy and paste that into your head? That picture of what a teaspoon looks like, and it might look a bit big on the screen, but it is 5 of those little milliliters which you'll find in that syringe. Go and draw up 1 milliliter in a syringe and drink it and see what it's like. Go and take a teaspoon of juice, drink it and see what that feels like, because then you'll never forget that. Right, on we go. Okay, now we've dealt with milliliters, which is a tiny little bit. It probably would fit into the top of your little pinky finger. So what does 1 liter look like then? So there's your normal 1 liter of milk. Now, guys, you can buy 500 mils, which is a half a liter, but that is your big 1 liter. It was about, if I can't even show that on the screen. No, it's just not going to work. But that is your 1 liter of milk, which I buy, my long life full cream milk, and 1 liter. And then sometimes your parents will buy a 2 liter container of milk, which is double your 1 liter. And how do we write 1 liter in short? I always use a capital. You don't have to. I do, because sometimes it looks like a 1. So I like to be able to see the difference between a number 1 and the L for liter. So I use a capital. But now, what have we learned as well? That 1,000 milliliters is the same as 1 liter. What does that look like? Well, if you look at your syringe, 1,000 of those little few droplets in there fits into 1 liter of milk. Are you getting an idea now? What does 1 milliliter look like? And what does 1 liter look like? What does 1 kiloliter look like? Oh my goodness. Well, there is what I always call a skinny jojo, which is a water tank that you can store water from your drains and stuff that comes with the roof. So you can store about 1,000 liters in there. Or 1,000 liters or 1 kiloliter is also the same as what 3 baths can hold, approximately. Not exactly, but approximately. Depends on the size, the height, the width of the bath. All right, so 1 kiloliter is written in short, KL, and 1,000 of those liters of milk there on the screen, 1,000 of these fits into 1 jojo tank. So 1,000 liters is the same as 1 kiloliter. Okay, so what do we measure with milliliters? What would we use milliliters, or we'd call milliliters? Well, perfume in a bottle, and often if it's expensive perfume, there are only about 10 or 20 milliliters, or mils, as we say in short. We measure rainfall, water droplets in milliliters as well, and sometimes even in millimeters sometimes, and things like nail varnish. So now, what do we measure using liters? Well, there's a jug that looks like milk, and it's 1 liter of milk, or 1,000 milliliters, and there's our 2 liter Coke bottle. Right, and we use liters to measure those. What do we measure with kiloliters? Well, however much is in a swimming pool, and that can be, guys, from 10,000 to 20,000 to 30,000 liters. I know we filled our pool up, and there was a lot of water that we had to go and buy to fill our pool up because of the water restrictions. So, does that give you an idea? There's what milliliters look like. That's what liters look like. And that's what kiloliters looks like. So now you've got the picture in your head. And so next, we're going to look at certain capacity, or certain areas that hold water. And we're focusing on water more than anything, or liquid at the moment. So we're going to look and see that those are 2 examples where we measure water, or liquid or sand, or anything that can be held in a container, or capacity. We measure capacity, that size capacity, with kiloliters. What do you think we use, grade 3s, to measure the water in a fish tank or in a bucket? Yes, we use liters, of course. And there we have a medicine bottle, an egg cup, nail varnish, and a glass. And of course, what do we use to measure those, the capacity of those? Whoa, that's clever. We use milliliters. Fabulous. Okay, so I just know you're getting to understand it. So let's estimate capacity. Let's estimate and see how much we think might be in these containers. Now that there is a kitchen bucket. It's your normal bucket that you would use to put a mop in with the water and mop your floor, or transport water from one room to another. What do you think we would fit in there? And each bucket is different, but generally, often it's 10 liters, which is 10,000 milliliters. Now there's a Coke bottle, but it's not your big 2 liter Coke bottle, because you wouldn't be able to hold it like that. It would be much bigger. So that is a 1 liter Coke bottle. Okay, so 10 of those would fit into 1 bucket. And there we have your small can of juice. And generally, your small cans of juice or Coke, they usually have a plus minus 300 milliliters in there. And there we have a little bottle of eye drops. I wonder how much that would be. How much would that little bottle hold? Can we give a guess? About 20 milliliters. Now don't be confused sometimes about the size of the pictures on the screen compared with their real size, because I can't really have a huge big bucket size on here. The pictures are not going to be comparative. Okay, so you need to use your clever minds to kind of get an idea of what we're talking about here. Let me move myself over. Okay, so now here we've got wheelie bins, right? And this is where we store our rubbish or garbage, and it gets collected every week. So a wheelie bin has about 240 liters. So 240 of these Coke bottles would fill up one wheelie bin. But that changes. It's different for different size wheelie bins, guys. Okay, so they will vary in size. I've got a smallish wheelie bin and an average size wheelie bin and a big one. Right. So how do we use capacity in the kitchen? Well, we often use our 1,000 milliliter or our 1 liter jug. And that jug there has got 1 liter, or it can hold 1,000 milliliters. Then, remember we talked about teaspoons and cups and jugs and all sorts of buckets and sizes and so on. But generally speaking too, 1 cup, the standard measure for 1 cup is 250 milliliters. So 4 of these cups would fit into 1 liter jug because it's 1,000 milliliters, and 250 times 4 is 1,000. So if you are asked in a recipe to put a cup of flour into your bowl, you would put 250 milliliters in, and you'd use your 250 milliliter cup. 1 cup is always, in standard measurement, 250 milliliters. Now, there's a little group of spoons, and at the top you can see it's 15 milliliters, which is 1 tablespoon with a capital, well, it says teaspoon, but it's actually a tablespoon, and that's 15 milliliters, okay? But the one where the first arrow is pointing to is your 5 milliliter teaspoon, right? And that is 5 mils. That one there, although it's called teaspoon in the picture, I couldn't find a nicer picture, so I decided to use that one. We actually call it a tablespoon, and it's with a capital TBS. Then it's a different from a small TSP, or TPS or TSP. And that is 3 teaspoons fits into 15 milliliters, or 3 teaspoons are the same as 1 tablespoon. So there we are starting to see our standard units of measurement. And now I know that your parents have got cups and spoons like this. I do. And we use these standard units of measurement when we are baking or making something so that we get our measurement right. You can't have too much salt or too much sugar, or not enough salt and not enough sugar. So let's have a quick look at this. So there, that cup, obviously I said to you, is 250 milliliters, and 4 of those cups fits into 1 liter jug. Half a cup is obviously half of that, 125 milliliters. A third is approximately or about 83. A quarter of a cup, and they get smaller and smaller, is about 62, not exactly, but more or less. And an eighth of a cup would be 31 milliliters. Now look at our teaspoons. There's my usual one, my 5 milliliter little teaspoon. There's my 15 milliliter 1 tablespoon. There's half a teaspoon, which is 2.5 milliliters. Half a tablespoon, which is 7.5, and a quarter of a teaspoon, which is 1.25 mils, which is like just over 1 little milliliter little section in our syringe. So there we go. We've completed our standardized measurements there. So let's start looking at how we would read these on our standardized jugs. And grade 3 says lots more we can do with this, but this is just to get us started, all right? So there are 3 jugs in front of us with different capacities and different amounts of water or liquid in them. The first jug holds 1 liter or 1,000 milliliters. The second jug holds 2,000 or milliliters or 2 liters. And the third jug also holds 1,000 milliliters or 1 liter. Now you need to actually be able to look at the intervals that those little black lines are jumping in. And the first one, they are jumping in intervals of 50 milliliters. So that jug then, if you count from the bottom of the jug, holds 300 milliliters. It's less than half. The next one is jumping in intervals of 100 milliliters. So every little line represents 100 milliliters. All right, so if we count and jump up from the bottom of the jug, we can see that that jug at the moment is holding 1,400 milliliters, or 1 liter, 400 milliliters. And the last one is also jumping in intervals of 50 milliliters, and that jug there is holding 600 milliliters. Right, now what you can do. So I've given you some basic information and shown you some things, but what you can do now, guys, is to go and ask your parents, get permission to go and play around with these measurements. I'm sure you could find a jug, but please don't use glass ones. Please make sure you use the plastic ones, and please get permission first. So you can start looking for a teaspoon, which is 5 mils, a liter, which is 1,000 mils or milliliters. Note, I'm calling it mils, and that's what we generally do because we get lazy. So we don't want to say milliliters, so we just call it 5 mils, and that's fine. Right, you can start getting empty cans that you can say how many teaspoons will fit in here, and you can play around with these measuring spoons and measuring cups, and you can get a good feel of what capacity means by playing with some water out in the garden so that you don't make a mess. And also, if you play on the lawn, you can actually water the lawn at the same time and not waste water. And you can see I am quite a water warrior. So there we go. Grade 3's capacity has been introduced, and I hope you have a very good understanding of what that is all about. So all I can say to you now is thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being part of my maths lesson. I've loved being part of the maths lesson too, and being in your home and sharing something that I know with you. So have a lovely day for the rest of the day, and look out for the next maths lesson, and make sure that you tune in and log on and learn along with everybody else. So from me, Les, a happy goodbye.